Please welcome to our series on Angular 7 tutorials. This is the first of our tutorials, and on this tutorial we're going to learn how to install Angular 7 and then also install Angular Material Design, and then how to use that Angular Material Design to build a screen. And just as an example, we're going to show you how to use the Angular Material Design component known as the map toolbar, which is just a toolbar that looks like the toolbar that you'll find when you go to Angular Material Design website. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do, we're going to build a new application. I'm going to call this application user. To build a new application, you just need you need to make sure that you have Angular 7. To do that, you just do ng version. Okay, as you can see, I have Angular 7, and then Angular 7 needs Node.js version 10 and above, so I'm going to do Node V, and as you can see, version is 11, so we're good to go. I'm going to do CLS to clear the screen, and then I'm going to build a new application. In this folder, JavaScript, I'm going to say ng new user, and that's all you need to do to build a new application. I'm going to use the defaults today for the Angular 7 and the Angular Material Design. So here I'm just going to enter Y, and I'm going to enter to select CSS as my style sheet. And the application has been built. This process is going to take about 5 minutes now to load up all the Node.js modules that Angular 7 needs. It depends on how fast your computer is or how fast your internet connection is, because you have to download tons of modules. They reside in a folder called node_modules. So it's a lot of them. It takes a long time. Your computer may take longer or shorter depending on how fast you use. This is the application that has been installed. And there's a lot of files here. The ones that we're going to be working with mostly are 3 files. This file called the app component ts. That's a TypeScript file, which is actually the main component of our user application. And then app component HTML, this is the main HTML file that you're going to see once we finish installing this and I bring up the application. You'll see this content from this file, app component HTML. The other very important file is the app module. This TypeScript file is the main module. Angular applications have to have at least one module. And if you want many modules, those modules are attached to the main module. And this is our starting module. Okay, and as you can see, it's done installing. And you should see your screen look like this. I'm going to say File. I'm going to say Open Folder. Okay, and I'm going to go to the folder that I just created right now. Select that folder. What this does with Visual Studio Code, it brings up a complete project, basically, based on that Angular folder. So here we are. So like I say, node modules. The reason why it took long is because it was downloading all these modules. When we come here to the source, you need to get to the source application folder. In here, like I said, there's 3 files. The module is very important. This is the one that bootstraps the applications. This is the file that is going to show the HTML is a file where this stuff is going to be shown on it once we run the application. I'm going to say terminal. I'm going to bring in a new terminal. I'm going to be working with this terminal to run the application. And I'm going to say ng serve open. And what this command does is that it first compiles your new Angular 7 application. Then it opens up a browser and serve it there. And it serves that application on the browser's port 4200. Now that it's done, so if we go to our browser, you can see that the application is running. And to bring up the Chrome developer tools, all you do is the key F12 in your machine, and it'll bring you this. This is very critical. If you look in here, if there's any errors in this application, you're going to see it right here. So right now you can see it's clean. There's no yellows and there's no reds. It means there's no warnings and there's no errors. I'm going to go back to my Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to add the Angular Material Design into this application. Once we add it, you're going to notice 3 differences. First of all, in our main, it's going to add something. The first line over here is going to be a line called hammer.js. And in our index here, you're going to see Angular Material in your main module. We're going to add a module in here basically to manage the Angular material. So let's get started. So to do that, I'm going to do new terminal. I'll leave the first terminal running on Node.js and go to the second terminal. And the second terminal, I'm just going to do again CLS. First, I'm going to go to the browser for the instructions and Google Angular Material Design, called Getting Started. Install the Angular material into a user application. Once we do that, we're going to create kind of material toolbar, and it's going to look exactly like this right here. See this blue bar on top? That's the way it's going to look. The first step, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come back into our Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to just paste whatever I copied from the browser there and run it. That's done. The next step says, and come to step number 2. This is very important. You copy that. I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to paste it here. We're going to again use the defaults. I'm going to click enter here to select indigo pink. You have to select a theme that goes with Angular material. You can always change this later. I'll select the default by clicking enter. And then now it's going to ask you, do you want Hammer.js? And I'll say yes. Browser animation, I'll say yes, I want browser animations. We went with the defaults, and now we're adding Angular material design. It's done. So if you go back to those 3 files just to test to make sure that everything, go to the main.ts and you'll find Hammer.js has been added here. That's very important. That's check number 1. Check number 2, go to the index and you'll find these fonts and these material icons. Let's go now. Go back to the instructions and see what it says. The next instruction says, okay, it says, you know, create something like, I'll go back to my Visual Studio Code and I'll say ng generate module, and I'm going to call it app material. I'm going to say flat module app. And what this command is doing is, if you look inside our app here, there's something called app routing module. It's going to create a module, another module called app material that looks almost exactly like this. So you can see it's created that. So once it creates this, now we're going to use this as our main module for loading all the Angular material design module. To start with, I'm going to delete this line. We don't need that line. I'm going to say import star every Angular material module as mat. I'm going to say that from Angular material. And over here, I'm also going to create another array. I'm going to call it exports. So when you import, you're going to be importing from the Angular material components. For instance, you'll do something like mat toolbar module. Always make sure you import just the modules, okay? And I'm gonna, everything you import, now I imported it into this module. Now I want to export it into every module in user. I'm just gonna go back here. Application is running and it's got Angular material. I'm gonna go back to application. Make sure there's no errors over here. And as you can see, it says could not find Angular material core theme. We're gonna go to the next step. We need to copy this. That's what it's complaining about. I'm gonna come back to our Visual Studio Code. I'm going to open a file under source called styles. And as the first line, I'll just paste that line that I just copied. Save that and go back to the browser. Make sure the application is still running. The application is still running well. And the font has changed a little bit because of the Angular material components that we added and the fonts that it brings in. So let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to my main application because I wanted to add it to the first page. And as the first line here, this is what I'm going to do. So this is how you add components. I'm going to do mat toolbar. I'm going to say color is equals to primary. Angular 7 user app. I'm going to save this. And now we'll go back to our browser. There it is. So that's how simple it is. Now, one last thing before we get out of here, I want to show you a little trick too. making sure this looks good. If you look at it, it's on the left. I want to put it in the middle, like this welcome user, the way it is. To do that, you just go back to the Visual Studio Code, and you're going to open styles, and we're going to define over here a class, a CSS class. I'm going to call it spacer, and this is just going to be flex 1 1 auto. I'm going to save that back now to our Angular page, and I'm just going to put so this is what I'm going to do. Show you. I'm going to put in here span plus, I'm going to do spacer, and I'm going to copy this and put it there and save. And now watch what happens. We'll go back to the Chrome browser, and there it is. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and goodbye.